Hey now, and welcome down to KC Toy Reviews. We are here today with The Fiend by Toys Era, aka Green Goblin from the original Spider-Man trilogy. That's right, William Dafoe's Green Goblin lieth in front of us. Now, the question is this just a placeholder for the Hot Toys one, or is it better, equal, or worse? Well, to find that out, let's go ahead together and dive right in. Alright, so here we are with the Toys Era Fiend, aka Green Goblin, aka best part of the new No Way Home movie. Now, if you are like me, as soon as you left Spider-Man No Way Home, you went home, went on the internet, and tried to get every single 1/6 scale figure from that movie. Whether it was something that was in stock or pre-orders, I just had to have it. I think I even have a variation of Norman Osborne coming, and the head sculpt looks bad. Overall it looked bad, but I was like, I have to have it. I need Norman Osborne. I need everything. And I forget what that one's called, but I should have the review up in about 1 or 2 weeks on that. And of course, what's in front of us, like I mentioned in the intro, is this just a placeholder for the Hot Toys Green Goblin? Well, the quick answer is no. It really depends. Is the Hot Toys going to be a superior version? Absolutely. I can see some glaring missteps in this one already. However, take a few steps back, enjoy it, look at it, and to the untrained eye, this thing looks amazing. Now, as I mentioned, as far as quality, there are a couple missteps. The entire suit on him is just this big rubbery type of suit, and my first thought when I had it in hand was, Hot Toys is going to do better than this. It's going to fit better, it's going to feel a little bit tighter. This was a loose, rubbery material that went around the body. By all means, I'm not saying it looks bad. It looks fantastic, but it's just a little loose and feels a little janky around areas, especially down at the ankles, and I can try to zoom in later, at the ankles and around the wrist. It just kind of bunched up and looked a little sloppy. So I can already tell that the Hot Toys ones, it's probably going to tighten up those areas. Not to mention, you have a blueprint already here. I guarantee the team at Hot Toys buys this thing and looks at it and says, hey, what are we going to do that's 10 times better than this? But again, swinging back to that question, is it a placeholder? No. Reason being is, I think this thing with the glider is around $250, which is a fantastic price. My guess is the Hot Toys one is going to be shy of $400. So right away, you need to take price into the consideration. Do you need that extra $150 investment to clear up some of those quality issues? The question really lies in your hands. As I mentioned, if you take a step back, this thing looks fantastic. On the shelf, it is a representation of the Green Goblin straight out of that Sam Raimi movie that we all know and love from our childhood. So I'm not going to sit here and harp the whole time, is it better than the Hot Toys, blah, blah, blah. I just need to stress right out the bat, clearly the Hot Toys one is going to be a lot better than this one. So here's kind of just where I wanted to show. See how it kind of bunches up around the ankles there? So a little bit sloppy. I'm not going to knock them too much about it, but I think there's something better that they could have done. See, it's just bunched up a lot down there at the bottom. And if we're to believe that this is a seamless metal suit, well, that breaks the illusion right there. Toys Era has knocked it out of the park with the paint application. It is a very smooth, matte/gloss look. It's hard to explain. Through the camera, it looks a little bit more glossy than it is. In person, it actually has a little bit more of a matte look. But dare I say a weathered look almost to it. But as I said, very clean and sharp paint application overall, and they really knocked it out of the park. And of course, all that sits on top of the rubberized suit. So you have a nice contrast between the armor pieces that sit on top of the rubber suit underneath. And obviously, it's all supposed to look like an armor suit, but the way that they put it together was pretty sharp and smart, and I think that it works. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the rubber suit that is indeed wrapped around the 1/6 body is a little bit loose. So there's some pros and cons to that. The cons are obvious. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole. The pros are that it has fantastic articulation. I believe that the body they used underneath does have double joints and all that good stuff, so we have really good articulation that can come with this guy. And because the suit is a rubberish and a little bit loose, I feel like it does bounce back pretty well. So I think you can leave it in some decent dynamic-ish poses without fear of damaging this suit. The only reason I mention that, there are a lot of 1/6 figures that I review, and I do stress I wouldn't keep it in a pose like this. It's most likely going to damage the material. I do think this material is going to be a little bit forgiving. Pair that with it being a little bit loose as it is, I think that you're going to be okay leaving it in some nice poses. One step closer to the head sculpt, I mean, fantastic. Dare I say again, a slight weathering to the helmet. It looks like little scuffs. I mean, either that's a paint mess up or they are just tiny little scuffs and weathering to the helmet. Either way, it works and I'm going to accept it and I like it. Note that we have those really awesome glaring gold eyes, and then the mouthpiece, it actually is a real metal little piece in there. It looks freaking awesome. And a quick look at the glider itself. Well, you can see it looks amazing. And the feet areas do pivot a little bit, so you can get a nice motion on his feet once you plug them in. And you will notice that there's like a little peg here. So at the bottom of the Green Goblin's feet, you also have, kind of reminds you of old school toys there. You have a little peg there that you can stick right into the glider. And as much as I did have him held on the back waist grabber that ultimately grabbed his leg, he does hold up pretty well without it. So actually it wasn't too much of a balancing act. I was a little bit shocked given the size of the stand, which I'll show in the next shot. Given how small it is, that we're supposed to balance a glider and a 1/6 figure on top of that. However, it wasn't that bad, contrary to my own beliefs as I saw it coming in. But yeah, it was not that bad. And of course, like I mentioned, again, fantastic detail on the glider. A nice paint application, a slight weathering approach to it. These things do pivot up and down as well, so you can get just a kind of a fantastic range of motion on this thing and get some crazy dynamic poses with this guy. And then I just kind of wanted to turn it upside down to show, look at that. Look at how amazing that looks. The pistons and the little wires and stuff underneath. It's just wow. Gunmetal, a little bit of a glare on the other metal, kind of a chromish look. Just a fantastic paint application. Almost looks nicer underneath than on top, oddly. And of course, as I mentioned, all of those things actually pivot back and forth. So just fantastic craftsmanship in this thing. And just a quick glance at the stand itself. I mean, not too much to brag about, but not too much to complain about, you know. As I mentioned, pretty surprised that we are balancing everything on top of this hollow, hot toy, crappy-ish stand. You know, I'm not a fan of these stands, but I'm happier that we got something rather than nothing. Of course, the So-So stand and the way they had that is far superior than this, and I will put that in an upcoming shot as well, so just kind of a quick side-by-side to go ahead and mention that there are other and better ways to do this, especially if we're going to have a heavy-ass, amazing glider and a badass 1/6 figure standing on top of a hollow, light type of stand like this. Dare I say that the poles are probably heavier than the stand itself. All right, now, on the right, we have the So-So Green Goblin, and on the left, obviously, we have the Toys Era Green Goblin. A crude reminder looking through the lens, man, So-So, I don't know what the hell you were thinking with the tone of that face. It should have matched the tone of the suit. Obviously, the tone of the suit and the face were the same tone. The comics, the show, I don't know what the hell you guys were thinking and how that passed quality control. I just wanted to get them side by side so we can see, first off, what they look like next to each other, and as I mentioned, also the quality in the stands. So-So has a better quality stand. Overall, it's a little bit heavier. It has a little bit more mass to it. What they did with the jets and the smoke coming off on the bottom actually adds a little bit more balance into it. So very, very smart system that they did there. And then you have the waist grabber that hits around back. If you notice the waist grabber on the Toys Era, I can only really get it around the leg. I'm sure if I finagled it enough, I can get it around the waist area-ish, you know, right above the legs, but it was very difficult, and on a stand like this, I didn't want to mess with it too much, so I'm okay with the way I have it. And then lastly, the So-So one on the right just sits freely by itself on top of those smoke, fire blasts from the bottom. The Toys Era one sits on top of one of those bendable metal poles. And I suppose the argument there is, well, you probably have a little bit more posability in the Toys Era one, probably a little bit more dynamic poses, so there are some benefits. But overall, they both look badass and fantastic. Happy to have them on my shelf. And there we have it. Now, before we slap a score on this guy, some final closing notes. Overall, this thing's fantastic. Normally, I don't take price point into consideration, and, you know, I'm probably going to sound like a broken record because sometimes I am starting to say the opposite, but with this figure, I mean, I can't believe we got away with $250 for a 1/6 scale figure with a glider that actually has movability to it. The underneath was fantastically detailed. The top was fantastically detailed. That glider is probably of equal value almost to the figure itself. I probably sound crazy saying that, but maybe the glider and the stand, those two alone just hold a lot of weight and a lot of value in this situation. And of course, sitting on top of that amazingly detailed glider is that suit. I don't know about everybody else, but I still vividly remember the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. Number 3, might not have been great, but still had some cool villains in it. Part 2 was good with Doc Ock. But man, part 1 with the Green Goblin, William Dafoe, Harry Osborne, just the classic storyline between all three of them was absolutely fantastic. So now we are lucky enough to have a figure on our shelves that reminds us of that amazing movie and, of course, to some of us, our childhood. I remember seeing this film with my dad in the movie theaters. So truly, it just brings back some fantastic memories seeing this thing spin in front of me. And yeah, the suit underneath, well, it was a little bit loose. Is that a terrible thing? As you can see behind the knees, it bunches up a little bit. Around the ankles, it bunches up a little bit. But overall, take a step back. The first impression of this guy is wow. I truly think those are just granular nitpicks about this thing because I think the suit overall is fantastic. We have great paint application, great articulation. I think it's going to be a forgiving suit, so if you put it in some great poses, it is going to snap back. I truly believe that. And of course, I haven't mentioned, but what you see is what you get, and that's not a bad thing. You have the glider here, and then you have the pumpkin in hand. You have a couple extra hands and then one extra pumpkin, but as far as accessories, what you see, everything is basically in shot now. And with all that said, as far as the score, well, I'm feeling it. It's going to be an 8.2 out of 10. That means, yes, I highly recommend this, especially for the price point. I would jump on it. My guess is this thing is going to sell out, especially because there still is a craze out there for No Way Home and Spider-Man. Doctor Strange is coming out, so that Marvel craze is still really hot with the Spider-Man. So for $250 and 8.2, I mean, you really can't go wrong with this figure. And then lastly, as I mentioned probably a couple times earlier, well, is it a placeholder? No, this isn't a placeholder. This can be your permanent Green Goblin on your shelf for $250. For $400, I don't know if the Hot Toys ones is going to be upgraded that much. Is it going to be a $150 difference? Well, we have about a year and a half probably to find that out. So between now and then, yes, I have this amazing piece that's on my shelf reminding me of that fantastic movie. So that's going to be it for us here today at KC Toys. Normally I do this thing where I grab the toy and I yell and I get towards the camera, and on this one it's going to be a pain in the ass, but we're going to do it anyways, even if I destroy it. KC Toys, see you guys next time. Norman on for Green Goblin!